Well, it's that time again to talk Oklahoma and Oklahoma State football. We call this podcast Bedlam Buds. My name is Ryan. I'm your Boomer Sooner, and this is my buddy Jeremy.
Go Pokes.
It was an interesting weekend, to say the least, of football. Interesting in terms of result, not interesting in terms of the competition in Lubbock. What are you going to say? Yeah, what can you say?
So here's what I'm going to say is that when you let the opening kickoff get returned for a touchdown, that's a bad sign against a top 20 team on the road. A top 20 team or top 15 team that just lost a game. That's a bad way to start. I mean, Texas Tech, basically, their offense really didn't do a lot. I mean, they got some of the fewest amount of yards that OSU has allowed all year. OSU honestly didn't look terrible. I mean, the traditional bad for this year, unfortunately, didn't get a lot of yards on offense. Coach even said, we just weren't ready to play. But I mean, one touchdown was directly from a fumble. One touchdown was directly from a special teams play. And there were a couple of others that were very short drives because of that. Tech didn't have to do a lot to win this game. And that's unfortunate. But I mean, and I hate to say it, and I hope the guys feel it, that, as an OSU person, we're proud of these guys that are continuing to play, that are continuing to put out effort. You can see some of these guys care. And at this point, the season's over, mathematically eliminated from everything. So you just want to see, do they still care? Do they still care for our brand and play for that brand? And there are some of the guys that are absolutely still laying it on the line. They're just, as a team, just not very good. When you're starting a wide receiver as your quarterback because of the injury situation, I mean, that's a bad sign. But it's been a forgettable year for Cowboy football, a forgettable year that won't be forgotten. I mean, you lose your head coach, you start the coaching search. There's questions on Chad Weiberg, our athletic department director, the AD. Did he have a contract? They've announced his new contract, so that's been settled. So now whomever we hire as the next coach will know that the guy hiring him is also going to be there. So that kind of opens up the pool of where you can go with coaches, because probably there's not going to be a lot of guys from the current staff still around. I mean, I have no reason to say that other than I would suspect that a new coach coming in wouldn't want to keep guys from a one in whatever season. I'm sure there will be some, and hopefully a lot of the support staff and those guys will be kept around. But my goodness, I just don't know. I mean, I've sat through a lot of bad OSU football, but it's been 25 years.
It may have been 35 years. I mean, it reminds me of the early 90s. I mean, there was a winless team way back in the day. And
I sat through 10-1. Yeah.
That's
people ask me how.
Yeah.
Right. When people would ask me how your team did this year, I would go, 10-1. And they thought we were great.
So now, some breaking news over the weekend that theoretically could trickle down to Oklahoma State. Brian Kelly being let go by LSU. Of course, James Franklin already gone. Not that either one of those guys is a good fit for Stillwater. And before we started recording, we were talking about good fits and people. I've long said that whoever Oklahoma State hires needs to somebody who would enjoy Stillwater. Smaller town life. A lot of fun. We always say you always have a good time in Stillwater, but it can't be a culture shock to you. That's why a lot of people mentioning John Gruden, I'm like, you can forget that. That's not going to happen. Norman wouldn't be a good fit for him either. Not that he's a huge city guy, but is there anything about the carousel of coaches right now that has you leaning toward somebody, or maybe fearful that somebody you were looking toward might be off the table because of the recent firing?
Well, I mean, again, I don't have any way to know exactly who they're looking at, but the Eric Morris guy out of North Texas, I think he's very intriguing. And the concern would be, does an LSU or somebody like that come and get him? Or does LSU hire away and then him step in? Or does Sarkisian leave Texas? There were rumors about him leaving Texas at the end of this year to maybe coach a pro team. Do they hire a Texas kid, a kid that came out of the state of Texas, played at Texas Tech, has had success with quarterbacks? And again, quarterback is a position. That's why I'm intrigued about him at Oklahoma State, is because of his track record with offenses and with quarterbacks specifically. And so, does something happen at Texas that causes that merry-go-round to really spin around? It's a great question. You have to be a cultural fit for a Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's not a big city. It's not a small town, but it's a college town. It's a traditional college town. Everybody here bleeds orange. It is the pro team in town. And so it's all about how the Cowboys are doing this week, this year, this season. So you do have to find a cultural fit. And I think somebody like I said, Morris out of North Texas would be more of a cultural fit. If he can survive Lubbock for 4 or 5 years when he was playing there, he can survive Stillwater. Okay. Now, that's the only name I've really looked at. I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of names out there. It's not a bad job to come and get.
Oh, absolutely not. LSU, of course, is going to flirt with Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's daughter dates a linebacker from LSU, although I don't think it's a great fit for Lane. If Lane were to go anywhere, Florida seems to be it, although I would argue that if Sarkisian would leave Texas, Lane ought to pounce at that. Barry Switzer once said that Texas is the best job in college football. One could argue that it used to be Notre Dame. I don't think so. The best college job in football is Alabama, and that's your number one. But LSU's top 5. It's really, really good. I think it's important for whoever the Bayou Bengals hire to be a cultural fit. That's why I posited in a video that Mike Gundy might be a good fit, as you educated me on or reminded me of. Les Miles left OSU, and he won a natty in Baton Rouge. So but I think about a guy like John Sumrall. I believe that's his name. The guy from Tulane. Is it that he's already in? I think he's already in Louisiana. I mean, Tulane's there in New Orleans. That's just a few miles down I-10. That might be a good fit. Not that I would think that Eric Morris would go from North Texas to Tulane. I wouldn't. You're in a top 5 market in the Dallas area right there. And what he's done with it, is his name Drew Mestermeyer? Whoever that quarterback is didn't even play quarterback in high school. And I just have a beef with the whole scouting system. Somebody said, well, if Oklahoma fires Venables, there goes your number 1 recruiting class. And I'm like, in 2025, any accolades with regard to your recruiting class mean 0 to me. 4-star, 5-star, 3-star, I don't care. Show me what he does on the field in a college setting. You could make him 7, 8, 9, 10-star. Eric Morris took this guy who had not played in high school and turned him into somebody who's going to play in the NFL. That is a fascinating prospect for whoever might be the next OSU coach, because that's exactly what Mike Gundy was.
Well, absolutely. And again, the concern with Arkansas being open, with some of these other jobs like that could also be cultural fits for some of these guys that we're looking at. Of course, again, I think Gundy to Arkansas would be terrific. I think he would fit in right well there. I think he would be very successful there. LSU, possibly the same. I think maybe more Arkansas than LSU, but I think Mike Gundy could be very successful at LSU as well. And so, as far as that goes, it makes for some interesting conversations, because it's not just guys coming in. It's what happens to our coach who is leaving, or who left. Where does he go? Because he's still an OSU Cowboy. He's still, an alum and great player and great coach and all of that. So, we want to make sure that he's successful elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And I think, and I could be wrong here, but what I think is starting to happen is I think schools are starting to panic. I think that schools are starting to panic that, holy cow, this carousel is already starting to spin. And since, I mean, again, with the rumor of the Sarkisian leaving Texas to maybe go pro, just that rumor, I think, is going to cause some more to spin, because there's going to be a lot of schools that go, if we don't get rid of our guy here to get this guy X, what are we going to do? If Texas becomes open, everybody will want the Texas job, and maybe we can't get a Lane Kiffin or those types. I think that we're about to see the next few weeks, we're about to see a really interesting coaching carousel because of that. And as more teams, OU has a really tough schedule.
Mm-hmm.
OU has a really tough end-of-year schedule. And so is Venables, could he possibly himself end up on the hot seat and have OU AD panic? But again, I'm with you. I don't think they should for a lot of reasons. Main thing is the guy's not going to be there next year.
Right. Joe Castiglione's not going to be the AD. He's going to be AD Emeritus. By the way, I don't know that AD Emeritus is a good idea. Retire.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to have him hovering. Yes, he's going to be hovering over. I just don't think it's a smart idea from a business perspective. But it's a contagion, and it's starting. And I think Brian Kelly's behavior and how he was perceived within LSU made it easier for LSU to let him go. We talked a few weeks ago. If you're liked in the athletic department, well, it's going to be difficult to let you go. That was something that UCLA, I mean, of course, Chip Kelly left of his own accord, but they loved Chip Kelly. Or at least he got along with everybody. The Venables situation is interesting. And just one note, though, about Sarkisian. In my opinion, that was a planted story. And his whole rant afterward about that reporter, this and that, is so disingenuous. It is just, it's assholery is what it is. It's just Sark being an asshole. Because the thing is that story is planted by his agent, Jimmy Sexton, or whoever it is. I forgot if that's the guy who's going around. Anyway, that gets planted. Here's why Sarkisian's not going to go to the NFL. It's because he would have to take a massive pay cut. It's to coach the Titans. He mentioned the Titans. Talk to me about the Dallas Cowboys, but the Titans, you would be going from 10 million to like 3 or 4 million. Why would you do that? Sarkisian is in line, theoretically, to be the next Alabama coach. The only problem is Alabama, looks pretty good this year. Now, a lot of people are like, Kalen DeBoer's not the guy. And some will say, well, that proves you got to give him patience. Bruh, it's his second year. It's his second year. And if he goes on to win a national title, I'm a big believer. You should see changes first year. You should be in it to win it by second year. The big schools, not everybody, not Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State should be on a 5-year plan. But you should see the difference immediately.
Didn't Stoops win his title in his second year?
In his second year, so did Jim Tressel. And it happened just sort of back to back there. But you saw the changes immediately with Stoops. Remember, and I think, if we could ever have Barry Trammell on this podcast, he would confirm it, but the late David Boren wanted to fire John Blake before he ever coached a game because he couldn't run a meeting. He was incompetent. And I will tell you, before Venables was hired, I had lots of conversations with Dean Blevins about this. Dean was not a fan of Brent Venables being hired, and I think Venables knows it. Dean wanted Dan Lanning, and Dean's concern with Venables, having been around him for a long time, is that he wasn't up to the task of being the CEO of a football team. He is a coordinator. And I would point to you as we segue into the Sooners here that a lot of the marks of John Blake's Sooners are showing up in Oklahoma in terms of a lack of discipline, a second week of massive number of penalties, although not nearly as many yards. Last week it was 10 for 98. This week it was 8 for 52. But just a lot of detail and discipline left on the table. Everybody trying, just like in Stillwater. In Norman, everybody's trying their best. But I will tell you, and I listened to about half of the 2.5-hour Oklahoma breakdown with Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman, which is always an educational listen. But they saw a lot of they saw more than what I saw, but they felt what I felt. So just a quick tangent. I don't know if you saw this, but Jackson Arnold got benched in Auburn, and then Auburn came back to win. He got benched.
I didn't see that.
He got benched because he threw a 95-yard pick six. And Hugh Freeze, by the way, OU fans said mid-season last year, this guy isn't it. And then he goes to Auburn and proves us all right.
Well, You know that joke someone told, I think I might have mentioned on one of our earlier pods, is somebody said, I'm just glad to see Jackson Arnold finally get a chance to throw passes to OU players.
Right, 100%. Well, if the OU defense, the vaunted OU defense, could even get any takeaways. None again
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah.
It's been the hallmark of this defense has been that it's been good, but it hasn't been ferocious. It really hasn't. The Bob Stoops defenses of the early 2000s, no, of course, I know that was Venables and Mike Stoops. They took the ball away a lot. They were ball hawks.
Well, but you had Rocky and you had Roy and you had Teddy and you had some absolute monsters back there. You can't do that all the time. That's lightning in a bottle type of defense those guys had.
But
I think they were terrific. They were fun to watch.
I'm sorry,
until they were kicking my team's butt. But
I thought Brent Venables was the master defensive coordinator. What that can be
well,
taught.
Absolutely. What did Eddie Sutton used to say? Sometimes it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmy and Joes.
100%. And by the way, that's why he and Kelvin Sampson were friends. Kelvin Sampson would put like a lid on the bucket and have the guys go fight for the ball on the floor. Kelvin Sampson taught his teams to be gritty. And he's doing it in Houston. That's why he's a Hall of Fame coach. But the Sooners on Saturday, the big problem, it wasn't really the defense. The defense did give up 32 points of the 34 and 400 yards. The big problem was John Money Mateer. It was the quarterback. And he comes from Washington State, and he looked all right. All right, as Randy Jackson would say on American Idol. It's all right, dog. He was okay the first few weeks. And in one of our first episodes, I said, I don't know that I'm that impressed with John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle. At a time when everybody was still like on the train, he's only gotten worse. And Gabe and Teddy in their podcast pointed out just how many times Mateer didn't see down the field. Guys wide open. You think when you're watching it on TV, the quarterback's scrambling, you just assume he can't find anybody. Nobody's open. But what if that weren't true and he's just not seeing him? To wit, the play it was a beautiful play. Mateer improvised it beautifully and found Satanian, and Satanian was hauling ass down the sideline, 76 yards. Jaron Kanak was wide open over the middle, wide open. And as you noted, you watched the OU Mississippi game. That wasn't nearly the first time Mateer was missing guys.
No, he missed several dudes downfield. He missed several dragging across. Now, I can understand, when you're in a panic, when you're being pressed, when that defense and Ole Miss has a good defense, when they're putting pressure on you, doing some panic throws or maybe misreading some guys. But there's a pattern of him not being able to see downfield. I don't know if it's size. I don't know if it's training. Because Kyler Murray had that problem, but Kyler Murray was so quick and so agile, he could get around the big guys to where he then could see, right? Mateer's not doing that. Mateer is just missing guys downfield, which is kind of surprising to me, and I wasn't watching specifically for that, but I just noticed that a couple of times, and I think even the announcers kind of mentioned something about a couple of guys coming wide open, and so yeah, that's something that needs to be fixed. He needs to watch quite a bit of game tape so he can get that, and he needs to run some extra practices with those receivers so he knows, so they get on that same page as, if I'm having to break out because of pressure coming from my backside, I need you to drag across with me, those type of things. But yeah, you're 100% right. He's missing some pitch and catch throws.
Something is not right there. And the momentum of this game really turned, I believe it was the second quarter when Mississippi got the safety. There were a couple of penalties that bogged the Sooners back down at the 5, and then another penalty that got them to the 2. And then for some reason, we're running Torrey Blaylock out to the side, and he was tackled in the end zone. The running game had some sparks with Xavier Robinson, but a lot of the play call was just bizarrely bad, and Venables called it out sometimes. And I remember when the Cleveland Browns, the year that Baker was coming in, you watched Hard Knocks with Hugh Jackson, and you essentially had a team of coaches who were undermining him on purpose, hoping he would fail. And this is why Brent Venables should have probably cleaned house when he came to town and hired his guys. That's why whoever gets hired in Stillwater should be able to hire his guys. there's something that is off, because Venables in postgame is saying, yeah, I think it's fair to say that we should have run Xavier Robinson more than we did today, especially in the fourth quarter. I got news for you, bud. You're the head coach. You can make that happen. Make that call. There's a level of micromanagement that needs to be had. I posted a video today about the owner from the Indianapolis Colts, Carly Ursay Gordon, who's on the field taking notes. She's up in their shit. She's watching what's going on. She's listening to what's going on the headset. Maybe that type of thing needs to be happening with OU, because you talk about Mateer and the receivers not being on the same page. I don't know that Venables and his own coaches are on the same page.
Well, here's the thing, though, with the Colts owner is that, as far as I know, she's not interfering. She's just paying attention to the process, right, letting it happen, but so she understands the process. Now, the problem is that at OU, if you had that, you're going to have somebody starting to interfere. If somebody, if the president or the AD or whomever is down there.
I'm not even suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is Venables is the head coach. Get involved.
Well, and that's exactly it, because there have been rumors forever, and I still don't know if this is true, that if a play call would come down, if Gundy didn't like it, he would change the call. Because ultimately, he's the head coach. Ultimately, it falls on him and the responsibility. So Venables needs to realize that. You have to be a CEO in modern college football. It's a CEO. It's hard for a coach to be a coach or a head coach and a coordinator at a big successful program, because there's just so much. You got to be that CEO. However, you also have to understand that the buck ultimately stops with you. And so ultimately that's where the fall guy is going to be. That's what happened with Gundy, and Venables kind of seems to be walking down that path as well.
It looks better for OU in terms of a chance for victories down the road with Kelly leaving, although maybe the Bayou Bengals, get a little boost from whoever takes over. Eli Drinkwitz, is that his name? Eli, the guy from Missouri?
I'm not sure. Not a fan of Missouri.
He's a good coach, but he's
not a fan of Missouri.
He's going to be a candidate for a lot of these gigs. What if he were to? He wouldn't leave during midseason, but it's another team that OU is going to play. OU's going to get their tail kicked in Knoxville this week. I think Heupel will have mercy on the Sooners, but they're going to score a lot, and the Tennessee defense is better than the Mississippi defense.
Okay, so that was going to be my question: is if that actually happens, is there suddenly calls for OU to get Heupel?
Well,
would Heupel leave Tennessee?
I think that Heupel might leave Tennessee for Oklahoma. His family relocated, and I think his mom is not with us anymore. I'm not 100% sure about that. But they moved to Muskogee and from Aberdeen, South Dakota. And so they lived in Oklahoma, and he's got a lot of roots here. I don't know that it has to be within the Oklahoma family, but you'd have a good offense.
Well, and he's been gone long enough. It's like what we were talking last time. He's been gone long enough. He is a part of the OU family, and he is a legend forever there because of what he did in early 2000s. But he's been gone long enough, and he's had enough of these other experiences, and he's had time to run his own program fairly successfully. I think he would be a great hire for OU.
Heupel's a legend in my mind. He achieved the impossible, taking a Blake team and turning them into national champions in 2 years. I'd be all about it. But this isn't going to be a Baker Mayfield miracle in Knoxville like it was 10 years ago. This is going to be a Tennessee team that just beat Kentucky, which, by the way, Texas had trouble with Kentucky in Lexington. Tennessee beats Kentucky in Lexington like 56-27 or something like that. The problem is that, I don't know that Tennessee's going to score 56, but I don't know that Oklahoma's going to score 27. I mean, this is a game that I could absolutely see being 41-13, 41-20. That's fine. Okay, you got Missouri, you got LSU, you got Alabama. Which one are you going to win? The problem is that I don't know that it's any of them. Now, I get LSU will be here in Oklahoma, but at that point, that's second to the last game or the last game. I mean, could the air be completely out of the balloon at that point? It wasn't just a loss that LSU had to Texas A&M at home. It was a beatdown. What if the Sooners go out to Knoxville and get beat 51-19?
Well, that's where you got to have that coach and that coaching staff rally the guys. I mean, but if they're done, and I'm kind of afraid of that at Oklahoma State. There are still a lot of guys playing, but it's not enough. Um, do the guys there at that point at OU go, well, we're 6-6 again. We might as well just not even bother. Because Alabama's the last game, right?
It's one of them, LSU or Alabama. I was thinking LSU might be our post-Thanksgiving game, but Alabama's toward the end also. That's not going to be a win.
Well, no, Alabama won't be, and LSU, you're right. I mean, there's that new manager bounce. You get a new coach, and I mean UCLA. Look what they did right after
Right.
they fired. So, golly, it's interesting times in college football land in Oklahoma. I liked it better when we were good.
I do too, but I also love the come up. I will tell you, one of the things that I'll always be grateful to John Blake for is that he was a good recruiter. But it took a coach to, a CEO, if you will, to put it all together. I definitely want them to be good, but I don't want them to be regular. I would almost rather it be bad than regular. And the fear is Nebraska. No offense, Cornhuskers, but you've become the symbol, the literal symbol of going from greatness to just mediocrity.
Absolute abject mediocrity. You're right. They're not even bad. They're just average.
They're just.
I mean, because a bad team can be fun to watch. The Cincinnati game a couple weeks ago, that was fun to watch. I mean, and the crowd was having a good time and all that. But there's nothing about Nebraska that, in any way, shape, or form, that screams fun. And they've been average for 30 years now.
Well, if you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Dallas Cowboys, the frustrating thing for me isn't that you're not winning titles. It's that you're sitting around at 7-10 or 9-8. Mike Tomlin, the year after year of 8-9, 9-8, 10-7. My goodness, crapper, get off the pot, man. Yeah, what are we doing here? But the fear is though, if the minds of recruits are very, very short. They don't remember the glory days of the 2000s. Even with Oklahoma State, you go around and say that Oklahoma State, well, we almost won the national title in 2011. They're not going to remember that.
Dude, they were 4, if that old.
That's right. That's. I do think that college football is going to turn into the pros in this respect. You're going to have a lot of coaches get recycled at this place and that place. In hockey, there's almost a rule in hockey. It's like Methodist ministers, 5 years and out. Got to go. Find somebody else. And it's just because they get stale. And I think that's going to happen. I don't know what happens with Venables. I think he's safe if the Sooners end the year 7-5. But I think they have to win one of these final games. Otherwise, I think he's done under this AD. It's a contagion, and it's right. The contagion could be a blowout loss, prompts it. And what's happening is these schools, you're like, where does LSU get $54 million? Where does Penn State get $45 million? I think these schools, it's not that they're going to eliminate the buyouts. They're going to figure out how to pay the buyout before they ever sign the dotted line with these guys.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Again, don't know this for a fact. However, when Oklahoma State played Oregon, the AD and a whole bunch of bigwigs flew out early and hung out with a guy that supposedly is like a multi-millionaire, has like a winery type of thing. And then the next week we lose to Tulsa and Gundy's gone. So there's very little you can convince me that they weren't talking to that guy lining out a buyout. I don't know, but to me, that's smart business. And what you're talking about is smart business. Know that you have that lined up and stop. I mean, good Lord, school, stop doing $93 million buyouts. What are you doing?
Right.
I mean, Penn State deserves some of this for that stupid contract.
Right. So I get it. You want a big name coach, but I would tell you, Bob Stoops wasn't a big name coach when he came to OU. And your Eric Morrises, your Summeralls, your guys across the country who are going to become big name coaches, you might not have heard of them yet. And it's maybe time to stop recycling these same old people around. Maybe it'd be better for James Franklin to go to a Bowling Green or a Toledo or something like that and just sort of like reinvent his career.
Imagine the recruiting pop a Bowling Green or a Tulane or a school like that would get from a James Franklin. Uh, a big an LSU, someplace like that. It's not going to make a wave because of what they're used to, right? But if you go to one of those, or heck, even an Oklahoma State, it would be a huge pop and a huge recruiting pop for that first couple of years.
Mm,
But you're right; it's not the same game. And schools, and right now, again, I think just like we both been saying, it's contagious and it's a contagion, and we're in the middle of it. And I guarantee you, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to see more big name coaches not there.
right. Yeah. They'll be disappeared. So we'll see how it goes in Tennessee. Oklahoma State, they've got Kansas next. Is that in Lawrence or is that
It's in Lawrence.
in Lawrence? By the way, I saw pictures of the stadium in the Kansas State game. It was empty. That's a newly renovated stadium up there in Lawrence.
Yeah, they. I went up there when we played them 2-3 years ago, and they were starting that renovation, and it was like at 70 million or something like that. I mean, it was a big time deal. And unfortunately, it's still Kansas football.
Right, right. And Lawrence is a
Hey, that's a great environment. Kansas is a fun to go watch a football game.
Yeah.
I've been up there a couple of times, and it's always been a great environment. I'm not making it this weekend though.
I went to Lawrence for to visit friends, and that particular weekend OU played Nebraska, and we went to a bar called Jester's. It was the year that Oklahoma got beat by Nebraska 69-7. It was 69-0, and I was several drinks in, and we all did shots when OU scored the one touchdown. We're like, woo, we scored. So
Take the victories where you can.
Yeah, I mean, you'll remember some of those times more than you'll definitely remember them more than the 7-5 seasons. That's for sure. All right, let's move on to a little bit of World Series talk. The World Series so far has gone pretty much how we said it would. It would be a split.
Yeah, 100%. Get that, the Blue Jays get that first win. LA got to remember how to play baseball again. They've been off for so long, and then they figured it out. And I mean, honestly, the Blue Jays had one inning in that first game where they scored like 90,000 runs. But and outside of that, it was pretty even up, actually. And so LA settled down. That pitching took over, just like we said it would. Their playoff type of experience. And when you have a team of guys that love to play for each other and know how to win, losing one game's not going to phase them at all. It's a long series. And now we got 3 in a row in LA, so it's Blue Jays are already under the gun.
Blue Jays performed well in Seattle, but this is not Seattle. It's not like I would say probably the actual home field advantage, if you will. It's probably tougher in Seattle. LA's very much a party environment, and that's cool and everything. But the Dodgers have the mystique that the Yankees always had. They're still the Dodgers, and stars in your eyes and young guys. And I think it'll be hard for them. You got 3 games in a row there. Toronto really needs to take 2 of 3 to have a real shot, because I think if LA takes 2 of 3, obviously if LA sweeps, the series is over, and it would be the first time since 1965 that the Dodgers would have captured the World Series, clinched it at home.
At home.
At Dodger Stadium. Of course, in 2020, they were technically the home team, but that was
pandemic. It didn't count.
So I think that the Dodgers win 2 of 3, and the Dodgers clinch it in Toronto. I would love to see some spark out of Toronto for this to be an interesting series, but the Dodgers, Yamamoto was so dominant in Game 2. He's going to pitch again. That's a loss. He'll probably pitch in Game 6. Excuse me. But the starting pitching, as long as if Toronto's goal has to be to get into the bullpen. As long as they're not in the bullpen, the Dodgers are cruising, in my opinion.
Well, I'm afraid that if the Blue Jays don't win Game 3, I think it's over. Yeah. I think that the Dodgers will just continue to win by more, if that makes sense, to where they might win the next one by 1 or 2 runs, but then it's 3 or 4 runs, and then by Game 5, if they're up 3-1, I think they're just going to, because then they can throw everybody. Every arm that they have to get that win, and I think they would win big. Now, Am I predicting that? Well, yeah, I guess I'm going to have to say that. Just to be a little bit different than you from Game 6, I'm going to say Dodgers in 5. Like we said previously. But yeah, you're right. The Dodgers, they know how to win. Their goal was to make the playoffs. They made the playoffs, and they have not looked back. They've lost, I think, 2 games.
Oh, 2 games. They lost one to Philly, and they've lost one to Toronto.
Yeah, 2 games. I mean, good Lord, that's playing well when you need to play well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Dodgers are going to continue that. They know how to win. They've been there before. And I think that's that.
I hope it's an entertaining series, but I fear that it won't be.
Right. I think it's going to be just like we're talking about. It's just going to be average. It's just going to be average 3 baseball games. It's not going to be anything exciting, but then it's over and it's anticlimactic.
Right. What won't be anticlimactic is the CFL playoffs. We'll talk about that in a second because I love Canadian football. But a little bit about the NBA first. I was going to say anticlimactic will be another Thunder championship, but it's very early in the season, and we've already had 2 games that were incredible to watch. The game against Houston, incredible to watch. The game against Indiana, or as one person said on Twitter, X, they said, Oklahoma City won game 8. And that was an incredible game. And then they go to Atlanta. Atlanta's a very interesting team because the Hawks were expected to be much better than what they are. And they've got a guy in Trae Young who's I don't know what his contract situation is, but he's a guy who I think is probably going to get moved this year somewhere different. Not to Oklahoma City, but you never know. But they were real disappointment to watch. I thought they were going to be much more competitive. Have you watched any of the Thunder, and do you have any thoughts? My primary thought about the Thunder in terms of like news, SGA is good. Breaking news, shocker. No, it's AJ Mitchell. AJ Mitchell is awesome. And AJ Mitchell is a star. I'm like, how many stars can this team have?
13. Well, yeah, I actually have watched the Thunder the first couple of games, especially the Rockets game. I caught it at the beginning or midway through the third quarter, right? Midway through that third period, and they were down, and I'm like, oh, come on. And then and you're right, that game just kept going. Free basketball. I think you even texted me. It's like, hey man, free basketball. I'm like, heck yeah.
Well, the other thing I texted you about was there was nobody who impressed me more on that court than Şengün, that Turkish guy from Houston. He was incredible.
That dude was just a scrapper. He should be playing in Serbia. I mean, he was just a scrapper. He's that type of dude that you hate to be on the other team, but you love him on yours because he's not dirty or anything like that. He just never stops. He just always goes. He's that proverbial gym rat who is good just because they want to be good. Yeah, he was terrific to watch. It was a shame he's for the Rockets. But no, Oklahoma City, I'm kind of not surprised they've started a little bit slowly in the game so far. I think that they will continue to pick it up. Last year was the second best season ever in NBA history with record and all of that. So you can't expect them to replicate that. However, I mean, they've already won some of these tough matches. And of course, again, the first one, beautiful that it was Kevin Durant who got the foul, who fouled out, that our new star got to lay the points down to win over Durant and his Rockets. So I was very happy about that. But Trae Young, if he ended up at Oklahoma City, I'm not sure who you'd have to get rid of to bring him on. But my goodness, they might not lose.
I will tell you the things I heard about Trae while he was at OU. I don't know that you want him messing with that chemistry.
Yeah, probably not.
He everything I heard was he was a me dude. So is what it is. Thunder had the Mavericks tonight. I had to check. And I watched the Mavericks tonight because, listener, you don't know this, but my second favorite team in the NBA is the Toronto Raptors. And so I watched them. And so the Raptors went down. They got their tails kicked by the Mavericks. And the Mavericks were wearing the cool green uniforms from the 80s. Remember when Dallas would play the LA Lakers in like 87, 88 in the Western Conference Finals? Dallas has a scrappy bunch. And I will tell you, Cooper Flagg is going to be a star. It is going to be enough to get Dallas fans to forget about Luka. I could already sense them forgetting about Luka. Dude,
They have to.
he
They
was
have to.
he was amazing. Cooper Flagg was amazing. He's going to be an all-star this year. He was the best player on the floor. It was either team. It was not. It was. I mean,
My problem is, where did he play college ball?
Duke.
So I'm automatically don't want him to do well.
Yeah, but
I mean, if it's Duke or North Carolina or any of those guys, I don't want those players to do well. But he's legit.
he played at Duke, right? I'm not just
Yeah.
that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, you're right.
He can take it to the hole. He can shoot it. He can strong up people down low already, body them. And being so young as he is, you could see the older guys on the floor giving him his, propers. They were like, dude, he's really, really good. And I don't know that we've seen this since Luka in terms of I mean, I'll just say it, a white guy coming on just all of a sudden, I hate that sociologically that people latch on to the great white hope of some of these things, but he's a really good player. And that is probably what it was going to take to make Dallas fans forget about Luka.
Well, I mean, you have to find another superstar because Luke is next level. You have to find another superstar coming in. That's why the NBA arranged it for them to get the first draft pick when it was 3% against them.
It makes you wonder.
We should talk about sometime. I mean, that's a conspiracy we need to talk about sometime. But so that he goes to Dallas, they get this next superstar. He is legit. He can be that. He's going to sell a lot of jerseys, and that's exactly what the NBA needs. I agree.
Well, and it makes you wonder, though. And I commented on this in the Oklahoma Memo newsletter on Friday about the NBA gambling scandal, which personally, not to get too political, is a distraction for everything. Release the Epstein files. And so I'll just say that. Thank you. You can send your cards and letters to me. But the thing is that the minute you have a scandal like that, and Chauncey Billups, if this is true, he's done in the NBA. He'll never be involved with the association. They'll take him out of the Hall of Fame. They will Pete Rose, man.
Pete Rose, that guy.
He's done. And I think it may just be the beginning. I hope and pray Michael Jordan's not involved. There's the conspiracy theory that Jordan was sent to baseball for 3 years because of gambling.
They allowed him to retire and play baseball until he served his actual suspension, and then he came back. Yeah, I just was seeing that over the weekend.
These leagues have to nip this in the bud. I'm not a big fan of the growth in sports betting from the perspective, especially in college. November 1st, they're allowing college players to bet on pro games. That's a disaster waiting to happen. And the reason they have to police it is because the minute we actually find out that something is rigged, Jeremy, we'll never believe anything again.
Well, and I think that the NCAA, here's their logic, is that they think, okay, if we allow our athletes and our coaches, et cetera, to bet on pro sports, maybe they won't gamble on college sports. Because there was some Iowa and Iowa State players a couple years ago who just like 2 or 3 years ago, a whole bunch of Iowa and Iowa State got busted for gambling and they had to sit a whole year. There was a Iowa receiver that had transferred to Oklahoma State that couldn't play because of the gambling issue up in the state of Iowa. Mm-hmm. And Iowa, it was not just happening in Iowa. There just happened to be somebody in the state of Iowa who caught, right? And I'm not sure if they were betting on pro or college. I suspect more college. And I honestly think that the NCAA, what they're doing is, okay, we will allow you to bet on the NFL so you don't mess up the NCAA. And that's, or, NBA, MLB, those type of things. Mm-hmm. That is what I suspect their logic is.
All right. I just sort of I had thoughts there and I was like, no, that's a good place to end that conversation. I've already spoken way too much from the frontal part of my brain. As you get older, you just start saying things that come to your brain. This week is playoff week in the CFL. I don't know how much you watch Canadian the Football League up there. Watch the Canucks. They're changing the game. They're ruining it. A whole bunch of rule changes. I don't like it.
as long as the receivers can still be going forward before the ball is snapped, that they got.
I think they are, but they're getting rid of the center line. They're going to make the field 100 yards long. I'm like, what are we doing here? Anyway, very interesting this year because the defending champion, the Toronto Argonauts, are not in the playoffs this year, but because of their rule, they have an Eastern and a Western conference. And what they do is it's not just the top 3 from each league who are in the playoffs, because if the third place team in either division has a lesser record than the 4th place winner in the other division, then they just move that other guy to the other way. It'd be like, oh, okay, Dodgers will move them to the AL this time. So Winnipeg opens up on the road at Montreal. I've been to McGill Stadium or McGill University. A lot of these teams play on university property. McGill's a beautiful campus. But Winnipeg, they've been to the Grey Cup 4 or 5 times in a row. I like
Grey Cup is the Super Bowl Cup for those translating from Canadian to American.
Yeah,
it's the Lombardi Trophy.
About the organization, eh? It's, by the way, the Grey Cup game has been more entertaining than the Super Bowl for several years now. It's a great game. Christy, she makes poutine. She orders me ketchup chips from Canada.
Let's have a watch party, baby. Let's have a watch party.
Dude, come on down, man. Come on down. I'll convince her to make poutine. The poutine is fantastic. She puts bacon and jalapenos in there. It is so good. But the team that I root for, that I have the biggest heart for, is the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They are the longest suffering of the Grey Cup contestants. They haven't won in 30 years. And the game this year would be played in Winnipeg. I've actually been to Hamilton Stadium, though, and I wandered onto their field. It's CFL, man. You can just walk onto their field. And I remember one of their marketing people was like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, I just wanted to take some pictures. They're like, "Hey, our shop's that way." And I went and bought a whole bunch of stuff. I love the CFL, love everything about it, love watching it. But I like Hamilton to get to the Grey Cup this year. And I have no idea who they're going to play. I really don't know that much about it. I just like talking about it. It's kind of cool.
I believe it or not, 2 weeks ago on the sideline, we were talking in one part of the game because it was when OSU was playing Cincinnati. We started talking about the CFL. We started talking about those rules because somebody jumped offside and or illegal motion. I was like, "Hey, buddy, this isn't the Canadian League. You got to have your feet set. You can't be running forward, you know."
Or as I discovered, watching a game at home, I believe it's Toronto versus Saskatchewan. If you're a CFL watcher, you know exactly what game I'm talking about. But at the end of the game, it was 20-20, and Toronto was lining up to kick a field goal, and I had an epiphany. And I realized, and there was no time, because what'll happen is you don't kick the field goal with 2 seconds left. You kick it with 0 seconds left. You get one more play. But I had an epiphany. Maybe it was just my wife. I don't know. Sometimes my brother John will come down and watch the Grey Cup, but I was like, holy crap, Toronto wins either way. Miss it or make it because of their rules. Because if he misses the field goal, it's 1 point as long as you kick it out of the end zone. And they won on a rouge. Or a single, if you will. I love that. It adds so much more strategy, and that's one of the rules they're taking away, the 1-pointer on field goals. Boo hiss.
No kidding. That's one of the fun things about Canadian football is that you can have a 1-point play as opposed to an extra point.
Well, I think they're going to have it, on other kicks, but not on the missed field goal because they don't want the games ending like that. I'm like, no, that was a game that we talked about for weeks. I say we, me and
right.
in my mind. So, right. We have gone on long enough. We're at the 48-minute mark. This one may be edited for clarity and for, who knows. But it's been conciseness. It's been fun, man.
Yeah, it's good.
If you're not doing anything on November 18th, let's get together and watch the Grey Cup.
Okay, I'll look at my schedule. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Picks for OSU Kansas this weekend. Who wins? What's the score?
I think if Daniels plays for Kansas, and I don't know if he's healthy or not, the quarterback, I think Kansas wins going away. I think it'll be I think that OSU is going to score this week, though. I'm looking at like a 38-13 type of game. If the Kansas quarterback doesn't play, if Daniels didn't play, and then it changes things quite a bit. Kansas, I think, still wins. But if there is any game of the 3 or 4 that are left that Oklahoma State has any semblance of having any possibility of possibly maybe having a chance to win, it's this weekend. But I'm thinking Kansas wins by double digits.
The score that I had in my mind was 38-22. And it's just, one of those games you don't know whether Kansas will be up by a ton and Oklahoma State makes it closer, or if it's close and Kansas pulls away. But I agree. Right. Another loss. Oklahoma, Tennessee. How do you see that one shaping up?
Unfortunately, I also see the Volunteers winning this one. I think it's going to be a closer game. I think it's going to be, honestly, I was looking at a 31-21 type of game. I think that Tennessee, it's going to be one of those that's going to be very frustrating for OU fans. I think it's going to be, you're just going to be close enough, but Tennessee's just going to keep just enough ahead to keep that score. Like, it'll be a 2-score. OU will cut it to 1. Tennessee will stretch it to 2. OU will cut. I think that's going to be kind of the pattern of the second half. I think Tennessee wins.
I think Brent Venables will focus so much on offense this week that somehow the defense has a little bit of a letdown. I like Tennessee to win 41-17.
Sure. That's a big margin.
It's a big margin. That's why they pay me the big bucks,
That's right. That's right. That's why DraftKings or whatever.
Right. Yeah, this podcast brought to you by FanDuel, DraftKings.
We're not opposed to gambling on sports. If they want to absolutely advertise, we will let that happen.
Absolutely. That's what we're all about here at Bedlam Buds. Just talking about whatever we're going to talk about. Anyway, until next time, folks, it's Ryan here saying Boomer Sooner, hope for the best, pray to God for something good to happen. And you got
Jeremy Cook saying, go Pokes, and well, just cross your fingers, man.
If you get a chance while you're out there, if you've made it this far, go to oklahomamemo.com where you can sign up for my daily local news recap. It comes out weekdays, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m.
Bright and early, man. I'm subscribed. You guys should too.